It was my brother, and I was the one who had to tell him. The envelope sat on my desk for 3 days before I opened it. Heavy stock paper, the kind that costs extra at the print shop. My name typed across the front in a font that was trying too hard to look official. No return address, just David Patterson. And my office address at Patterson and Chen Architecture. I should have known something was wrong when my assistant brought it in. She set it down with that look people get when they hand you something that feels like bad news. The kind of careful placement that says, "I'm not responsible for what's inside." I was 62 years old. I'd built buildings in 17 states. I'd survived a divorce, a heart attack, and the crash of 2008. I thought I'd seen everything that could walk through my door. I was wrong. Inside the envelope were photographs, 12 of them, printed on glossy paper with timestamps in the corner, each one a perfect, crystalline moment of betrayal. My brother's wife, Diane, with her hand on the chest of a man I'd known for 30 years, Michael Chen, my business partner, the other half of Patterson and Chen. They were at the Harbor View Hotel, the one we'd designed together 5 years ago, back when Michael and I were still proud of what we could create. The one that had our names on a bronze plaque in the lobby. The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat there for 20 minutes, just looking at those photographs. Diane's face was tilted up toward Michael's, caught in mid-laugh at something he'd said. His hand was on her lower back, possessive in a way that made my stomach turn. They weren't even trying to hide. The restaurant had floor-to-ceiling windows. Anyone could have seen them. Credit amun. When the floored, Graham. Godest to me. Graham started. 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 Graham. Someone had. My hands were shaking when I finally set the photos down. Not from anger. Not yet. From the weight of what I was holding. This wasn't just infidelity. This was family. This was business. This was everything tangled up in a knot I didn't know how to untie. I thought about calling my brother. Mark was 3 years younger than me, 59, with the kind of steady optimism that had always made me feel cynical by comparison. He taught history at the community college, coached Little League on weekends, and believed in the fundamental goodness of people. This was going to destroy him. I couldn't make the call. Not yet. Instead, I did what I always do when something breaks. I looked for the structure underneath, the framework that would tell me how everything was connected. I started with the dates. The first photograph was from 6 months ago, October 15th. I remembered that day because it was the same week we'd pitched the Riverside Development Project to the City Council. Michael had been distracted during the presentation, checking his phone every 5 minutes. I'd covered for him, thinking he was nervous about the numbers. He wasn't nervous. He was texting Diane. The second photo was from November, then December, then January. A pattern emerging, like architectural blueprints, unfolding on a table. Regular meetings, always at the same hotel, always on Thursdays. Mark taught evening classes on Thursdays. He wouldn't be home until after 9. They'd planned it, calculated it, made space in their schedules for this. I felt something cold settling in my chest, right where the scar from my bypass surgery had finally stopped aching. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness at an office party. This was systematic, methodical. This was Michael being Michael. The last photograph was from 2 days ago. Tuesday, not Thursday. They were getting bolder. Or sloppier. I couldn't tell which. I turned the envelope over, looking for any clue about who had sent it. Nothing. Just blank paper and the faint smell of printer ink. Someone wanted me to know. Someone wanted me to act. I was still sitting there. Photographs spread across my desk like evidence at a crime scene. When my phone rang, Mark's name on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before I answered. David. His voice was warm, cheerful. You got plans Saturday? Diane wants to have you over for dinner. She's making that pot roast you like. I closed my eyes. Yeah, Mark. Saturday sounds good. Great. 6 o'clock. Oh. And bring that bourbon you've been hoarding. The good stuff from Kentucky. Sure thing. You okay? You sound weird. I looked down at the photograph on top of the pile. Diane and Michael. Their faces close together. Intimate in a way that made my throat tight. I'm fine. Just tired. Long day. You work too much, big brother. That's your problem. You need to slow down. Enjoy life a little. I almost laughed. You're probably right. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my office and tried to figure out what to do. I could confront Michael. But then what? He was my partner. We had 6 projects in development, 300 employees depending on us. Contracts worth $40 million. I could tell Mark, but he'd confront Diane, and she'd deny it. And Michael would back her up, and I'd be the one who looked paranoid and jealous. I needed proof. Real proof. Not just photographs that could have been staged or explained away. I needed to know how deep this went. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I went to the office after everyone had gone home and accessed Michael's computer. We'd set up the network together 20 years ago, back when neither of us knew anything about cybersecurity. We'd used the same password for everything. The name of the firm, plus the year we'd founded it. He'd never changed it. His email was a revelation. Hundreds of messages between him and Diane, going back almost a year. Long conversations about their feelings, about Mark, about me, about how difficult it was to maintain the lie. But it was more than that. Buried in those emails were other conversations. Ones between Michael and a man named Robert Hastings. I knew the name. He was a developer out of Chicago, one of our competitors. We'd gone up against his firm 3 times in the last 2 years. We'd won all 3 bids. Apparently, he'd decided to change his strategy. The emails were careful. Nothing explicit. But the pattern was clear. Michael was feeding Hastings information about our bids, our designs, our client, relationships. In exchange, Hastings was offering him a partnership, a new firm, Chen and Hastings Development. All Michael had to do was tank Patterson and Chen from the inside. I sat back from the computer, the blue light washing over my face in the dark office. This wasn't just about Diane. Thanks for watching. And Sibu Ensign Telmangs the 7. They Video. They Video sin Sibu Ton May. 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 This wasn't just about my brother's marriage. This was about my life's work. Everything I'd built. Everything I was. And Michael was trying to steal it all. The rage came then. Not hot and explosive, but cold. Calculating. The same focus I brought to designing a building, to solving an engineering problem that seemed impossible. I thought about confronting him, calling the police, getting lawyers involved. But that would take time. Months. Maybe years. And in the meantime, Michael would cover his tracks, destroy evidence, turn our employees against me. No. I needed something faster. Something that would expose him completely. Publicly. In a way he couldn't deny or spin. I needed a plan. I worked through the night, filling a legal pad with notes and diagrams. By morning, I knew what I had to do. The first step was telling Mark. I couldn't do this without him, and he deserved to know the truth. I drove to his house on Saturday morning, 3 hours before the dinner party. Diane's car wasn't in the driveway. Mark opened the door with a smile that made my heart hurt. You're early. Diane's at yoga. Want some coffee? Yeah. But Mark, I need to talk to you. It's important. His smile faded. He'd known me long enough to recognize that tone. I handed him the envelope. He opened it standing in the doorway, his coffee mug forgotten in his other hand. I watched his face as he flipped through the photographs. Watched the confusion turn to disbelief, then to something harder, something I'd never seen in my little brother's eyes before. Betrayal doesn't just hurt. It transforms you. When he finally looked up at me, his voice was flat. How long have you known? 3 days. I wanted to make sure before I told you. So, I looked into Michael's emails. Mark, it's worse than just the affair. I told him everything. The emails with Hastings, the corporate espionage, the plan to destroy our firm and build something new on the ashes. Mark set the photographs down on the hall table with careful precision. What are we going to do? Not what should I do. What are we going to do? In that moment, I loved my brother more than I ever had. I have a plan, I said, but I need your help. And it's going to require you to pretend everything is normal for a while longer. Can you do that? He looked at the photographs again, at his wife's face, caught in a moment of happiness with another man. Then he looked at me. Tell me what you need. The Riverside Development Project was scheduled to break ground in 6 weeks. It was our biggest contract. $42 million to design and build a mixed-use complex on the waterfront. Residential towers, retail space, a public plaza with fountains and sculpture gardens. It was also Michael's baby. He'd spent 2 years courting the client, a real estate investment group out of Boston. They loved him, trusted him completely, which made it perfect. I started making mistakes. Small ones at first. A miscalculation in the structural load for the North Tower. An error in the parking garage specifications. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to create problems. Enough to require revisions. Michael caught them all. He'd come into my office, holding printouts with red circles around my errors, his face concerned. David, are you okay? You're not usually this sloppy. I'd put my hand on my chest, right over the bypass scar. I've been feeling off lately. Tired. Probably nothing. His concern looked genuine. You should see your doctor. Get checked out. Yeah, you're probably right. Meanwhile, Mark was playing his part. He showed up at the office twice a week, always when Michael was there, always friendly. He'd clap Michael on the shoulder, ask about his kids, invite him to the next poker night. Michael had no idea what was coming. The second phase of the plan required more finesse. I needed Michael to commit to something irreversible, something that would expose him completely. I found my opportunity in late February. The Boston Investment Group wanted to accelerate the timeline. They had financing that would expire if we didn't break ground by April 1st. Michael called an emergency partners meeting to discuss how we could compress the schedule. I waited until the end of the meeting to make my suggestion. What if we brought in a consultant? Someone who could handle the permitting and environmental reviews while we focus on the design work. Michael frowned. That would be expensive, and we'd have to bring someone up to speed on the whole project. I know a guy, Robert Hastings. Michael's face went carefully neutral. Hastings? He's a competitor. Was a competitor. I heard. His firm is scaling back, focusing on development rather than design. He might be willing to consult, and he knows the Chicago permitting process better than anyone. I could see Michael calculating. If Hastings was involved officially, as a consultant, it would give them perfect cover to communicate. No more secret emails. No more careful meetings. They could talk openly about the project, and no one would question it. I'll reach out to him, Michael said. See if he's interested. 2 days later, Hastings was on board. $50,000 for 6 weeks of consulting work. Michael handled all the negotiations personally. He was so focused on the opportunity that he didn't notice what I was actually doing. While Michael and Hastings talked about permits and timelines, I was documenting everything. Every email. Every phone call. Every phone call. Every phone call. Every phone call. Every revision to the plans. And I was making more mistakes. Bigger ones this time. Errors that would have cost us millions if they'd made it to construction. But Michael kept catching them, kept fixing them, kept looking like the hero, until the day I sent the wrong plans to the client. It was March 15th. Exactly 1 month before groundbreaking, I sent the Boston Investment Group a complete set of architectural drawings for the Riverside development. Beautiful, detailed, professional, also completely wrong. I'd included all the errors I'd been making. The structural miscalculations, the code violations, the engineering impossibilities. And I'd put Michael's name on every page as the lead architect. The client's response came within hours. A conference call with their entire board. Angry, confused, demanding to know what the hell we were doing. Michael tried to smooth it over. There's been a mistake. These aren't the final plans. David must have sent an early draft by accident. But I had forwarded them the email chain. Showed them that Michael had reviewed these plans. Approved them. Signed off on them. With his professional stamp. The client was furious. They demanded a meeting. In person. Michael came into my office after the call, his face pale. I looked up from my desk, where I had the photographs of him and Diane laid out next to printouts of his emails with Hastings. What did I do? I said quietly. That's an interesting question, Michael. He saw the photographs, saw the emails. I watched the blood drain from his face. How long have you known? Long enough. Long enough to understand what you were trying to do. To my brother. To my company. To me. He tried to speak, but I held up my hand. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, at the meeting with the Boston group, you're going to take full responsibility for those plans. You're going to resign from Patterson and Chen, and you're going to sign over your partnership stake for $1. You can't. I can. Because if you don't, I'm going to the state licensing board with evidence of corporate espionage and professional misconduct. I'm going to the police with evidence of fraud. And I'm going to mark with these photographs and a complete record of every lie you've told him for the past year. Michael's hands were shaking. Robert said you were getting sloppy. He said you were losing it. This was supposed to be easy. I know what Robert said. I read all his emails too. The ones where you two planned to poach our clients. Where you promised to bring over our best employees. Where you calculated how much my reputation was worth after you destroyed it. I stood up, walked around the desk, stood close enough to see the fear in his eyes. But here's the thing about architecture, Michael. Before you can build something new, you have to understand the foundation. And you never really understood the foundation of this firm. Which is what? Family, loyalty, honor, things you can't fake or steal. The next day, at the meeting with the Boston Investment Group, Michael resigned. He signed the papers, transferring his partnership stake. He walked out of Patterson and Chen for the last time while I stood there with Mark, my brother's hand on my shoulder. The investment group gave us an extension. 2 months to revise the plans and get back on track. I brought in a new partner, one of our senior architects, who'd been with the firm for 15 years, someone I could trust. We broke ground on schedule. The Riverside development is opening next spring. It's going to be beautiful. Mark divorced Diane. He's dating someone new now, a professor from the university. She makes him laugh. I've never seen him happier. Michael's new firm with Hastings never materialized. Turns out, when you have a reputation for betrayal, people stop trusting you. Last I heard, he was working as a draftsman for a small firm in Phoenix. Diane moved to California. I don't know what happened to her, and I don't care. Sometimes I think about those 3 days when I knew the truth but hadn't told Mark yet. The weight of that knowledge. The temptation to just ignore it. Pretend I'd never opened that envelope. But betrayal doesn't disappear just because you look away from it. It grows in the dark, spreading like mold through the structure of your life until everything collapses. The best thing I ever did was bring it into the light. Last week, Mark and I were having dinner at his place. We were talking about his new relationship, about my upcoming retirement, about everything and nothing. He raised his glass. To honest men, I raised mine. To family. We drank, and the bourbon was smooth and warm. And I thought about all the buildings I'd designed over the years, all the foundations I'd laid, all the structures I'd built to last. But the most important thing I ever built wasn't made of steel and concrete. It was the moment I chose to protect my brother instead of my business partner. It was the moment I chose truth over convenience. It was the moment I remembered that some foundations are worth fighting for. I'm 62 years old. I've built buildings in 17 states. I've survived a divorce, a heart attack, and the crash of 2008. And I've survived betrayal, not by pretending it didn't happen, not by accepting it or forgiving it, by standing up, speaking out, and making damn sure that the people who tried to destroy what I'd built paid the price for their choices. Dignity sometimes begins the moment you stop excusing the unforgivable. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it.